Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Maybon. I am the board chair for the Corona Chamber of Commerce and owner of Creative by Design. We have a great day ahead of us with some important updates, so we appreciate you taking time to join us. As all our weekly calls are informative, we continue to assist you in creating vision and bring a variety of speakers and topics. Today, I will be sharing the agenda with our president and CEO, Bobby Spiegel. Bobby?
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much, Kim, and welcome everyone. We would like to start off with our sponsor, and that is Norco College. Norco is a two-year public institution of higher education, one of three colleges in the Riverside Community College District. They offer over 80 majors, including certificates, degrees, industry credentials, and free short-term certificates. The fall registration is now open. We want to thank Norco College for being a great business partner and for being a champion for higher education and serving our community. Kim?
Thank you, Bobby. As a reminder, please use the chat button to ask any questions. Send your questions to Chamber Host and we will verbally ask the question at the appropriate time. Back to you, Bobby.
Thank you so much. Just want to give a 90-day kind of a snapshot, but a couple of things. You know, there's this Delta virus thing going around, this Delta strand that they're really worried about. And so one of the partnerships that we have is with the County of Riverside, and they have furnished us a similar N95 masks. They are available. It is a partnership with Riverside County. These are being offered free while supply lasts. And the main thing that I want to express on these masks is that you have to train your staff the proper fitting, because they aren't just like the throwaway mask. They do need to be applied the right way. So if your company is needing the masks, please come down to the chamber. We'd be glad to furnish those to you for free. And that again is a partnership with the County of Riverside. The next slide is about our August 5th training. That's a chance for what we call a one-on-one training. You'll have an orientation that will be on August 5th, and that will be with Paul Webb and also with Jeff Brandeis. And what goes on during that hour to an hour and a half time frame is an opportunity, kind of an orientation to get to know each other. And then later throughout the next 8 weeks, you will have a 30-minute session each week to hold yourself accountable. I know that as we get busy with our schedules and as executives, oftentimes we don't have anyone that can hold us accountable. Through a partnership we have with Paul Webb as well as Brandeis Training, this is now an availability. If you were to buy this on its own, you could spend upwards of $500. They're offering it for $75. If you're a member, for non-members, we're offering it at $200. So you got the link on there, the bit.ly. Please log on there. That would be great. Let's talk about some fun stuff that's going on August 11th. We've got our mixer. We're calling those Circle City Socials, and that will be at the original Cangrejo Nice. That is off the I-15 at Hidden Valley Parkway in the Kohl's shopping center area. Great restaurant and a lot of fun. Some good networking. You can get your tickets early. You can register at the bit.ly CCSOG11. And if you do want to do like an exhibit table, they are limited in quantity left. So please connect with Desiree at mychamber.org. That will be from 5 p.m. till about 7 p.m. The next slide that we want to share about it is something that we brought back and we're very excited about it. Tuesday, August 31st, Yankees and Angels right here in Corona, the Corona night with the Angels, not here in Corona, but we're going to take a bunch of us down there. And what a fun time. I just wanted to roll out an idea for you. I was at the Angel Stadium yesterday, and they're going to be giving away a kind of a cool thing for the first 14,000 people that show up that game night is going to be an Atani pillow. So you want to get there early. The game starts at 6:30. The gates open at 5 to walk into the park, but the parking lot opens a little bit earlier. So you may want to get there a bit early and get in line for that. If you have a nonprofit that is part of our chamber and you would like to donate some of the funds from these ticket sales to that nonprofit, when you register for your tickets, you can easily just put that nonprofit name in there. And then when we're done with all the sales, we'll be able to give out some money to the various nonprofits. The prices do go up after this Saturday night. So on August 1st, prices will increase. So please get the early bird pricing of $30 to $140, and it's all explained on the website. So I did want to share with you, our next slide is going to be about Good Morning Corona and the various things that we have going. You know, there's going to be some tremendous stuff happening on 4 different months that we have left: August 20th, October 15th, September 10th, and November 12th. And I'm going to go through those rather quickly, but I want you to know what is going on. We have a group called Executive Leadership Roundtable, and their program, they will be graduating the group from this year's program, and we would love for you all to be there on August 20th, and it's going to be a great time. You'll see the bit.ly right there on the screen. And let's go to the next slide, which is September 10th. We definitely want to honor our local heroes, and we're going to actually have the policeman and the firefighter of the year that each department has already recognized. We're going to do a public acknowledgement for them. Additionally, this will mark the eve of 20 years since 9/11/2001. We want to pay tribute to all of the firefighters and the police officers, but also all the citizens that were impacted and just everyday people. And so we do encourage you to be there on Friday, September 10th. And then on October 15th, we are so honored to be able to bring back our congressional update with our own homegrown Congressman Ken Calvert. And we are very excited to have him and welcome him back. And then on Friday, November 12th, it will be a way for us to salute all of our veterans again and say thank you. Thank you for serving. Thank you for protecting our freedoms. And this will be not only for just veterans, but any active duty. They will be our guests, so we are definitely looking for some sponsors on that. I know it seems like a lot of information. I've been on for about 4 minutes. I do want to just cover right now our biggest event coming up for Riverside County is the Women's Leadership Conference. The Corona Chamber is very, very excited to be able to host this again up at Crossroads Church. Create, aspire, and lead. Some tremendous things. I did want to just rattle through real quick on the speakers on what is going to be happening. This will be both in person and virtual, but all the speakers will be in person. Our county super and founder of this program, Karen Spiegel, will start off with an inspirational message on grit, followed by the following 10 speakers that will each have 10 minutes. Kathy Armstrong, Brazilda Beck, Diane Callanan, Emily Filipino, Robbie Mater, Sonja Prince, R.V. Robinson, Dr. Aaliyah Rodriguez, Dr. Cassandra Sanders Hawley, and Jan Steiner. There will be a physicians panel that will enhance the conference with topics and issues that every attendee will be interested in. And of course, we do have sponsorship opportunities available as well as exhibit booths. Now, prior to the COVID-19, we had over 800 people at Crossroads 2 years ago. So I would encourage you to start looking at sponsorships as well as exhibit booths. This is a great opportunity. It will be Thursday, September 30th. It will be a morning time. The individual tickets will not be released for a couple more weeks, but we can see, oh, can't even see me. Okay, that's okay. Don't look at me, look at the screen. So please log on to mychamber.org at /WLC. So with that, okay, I want to talk about membership. There's many people that are on this call that perhaps you know people, businesses that are close by you. I definitely want to make sure that if they are a neighboring business or someone that you write checks to, please consider encouraging them to join our chamber. Get in touch with Robert, let him know that you have a lead for him and he will assist them in becoming a member. With that, I just want to thank you all for being on the call. I did take a little longer time and I apologize. It's back to you, Kim.
Thank you, Bobby. Are there any questions for Bobby?
There are no questions.
Okay. Well, at this time, I would like to thank some people that are on the call. We have Vice Mayor Wes Speak, former council member Yolanda Carrillo, and representing Supervisor Spiegel, we have Wendell Bugtie. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right, as we begin our segment titled 3 Questions, I want to remind you that if you have questions for this topic, please put those in the chat, in the questions in our chat box, and we will ask them when the section is completed. Before we begin, let me share with you about who is on this call. I already covered, okay, yeah, I see it now. All right. Let me share that our moderator, Jeff Miller, was voted by our Chamber Board of Directors to be our chair for the Legislative Action Committee, which oversees these weekly meetings and our advocacy outreach. Jeff has an impressive background. He's formerly served as our community in many roles, including as Corona City Council member for 8 years and as mayor of Corona. Jeff has also served the state of California as an assembly member for 4 years. He is a small business owner with his own insurance practice of 45 plus years. Jeff has been a key member of our legislative outreach, assisting the Corona Chamber to be at the top of its game, and as chair, he will continue to assist us. Thank you, Jeff, for your commitment to volunteer to help the Corona Chamber. Today, Jeff will host Todd Cottle with CNC Development. This is a father-son organization and has an excellent track record on building a community. Todd Cottle oversees development, acquisitions, entitlements, finance, and construction activities at CNC Development. He has facilitated the development and repositioning of over 30 market rate and affordable multifamily communities and has overseen investments in various retail, office, and commercial developments. Todd has an extensive expertise in structuring public-private partnerships to successfully acquire, finance, and redevelop underutilized infill locations. Todd is a licensed California real estate broker and a licensed California general contractor. Through his hard work and years of experience, he has helped make CNC Development known for their quality design and construction. Jeff, please take it away.
Thank you, Kim. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I am so excited to be able to introduce and ask a few questions of Todd Cottle. We'd like to get right into it. Todd, so your development company has had several projects in town prior, and there's more to come. Can you briefly share a little bit about the projects and your company's philosophy on how you approach housing development related to acquisition, construction management, property management? What sets CNC Development apart from other developers that have come to town?
Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the question and appreciate having me on this morning. Can folks hear me okay? Coming in clear?
You're good.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to see a number of familiar faces here on the screen and hear voices that I haven't heard for a little bit of time. But yeah, CNC Development, we've been in the development business for almost 40 years now. We're a family business located, actually headquartered in the city of Tustin, but do work throughout Southern California and have worked in partnership with the city of Corona and in the city of Corona since 2013. Our primary focus and primary business is the production of affordable housing or workforce housing for local cities and communities within Southern California. And we do that in a number of ways. We do that in partnerships with cities. We do that with, say, master developers that have inclusionary housing obligations, but really work hand in hand with the cities and local stakeholders to identify both sites and developments that are appropriate for the area, for the city, and meet the goals that each jurisdiction has. Specific to Corona, started partnering with the city back in 2013 and have completed 2 workforce housing, affordable housing developments to date. The first one was the Citrus Circle Apartments directly north of the City Hall. We share a property line with the City Hall. We're 61 family units. That was a nice project because you're always either on the way out or on the way home from the building inspector when we were under construction. So we knew we were going to get an inspection that day when we called it in, but was a great project did in conjunction with the city. We actually acquired an old well site from the city in addition to a piece of property that we own to facilitate the construction of that building. And that's been up and running since 2015. That project in particular, as we were going through that process, got to know the YMCA and Yolanda in her role as executive director at that time. We also have social services that are a component of our family communities, and partnered with the YMCA to provide after-school programming for youth within that. And so specifically designed a building and tweaked the building that we had out there to meet the needs of the YMCA. And that's been a great program, well received for not only our residents within that community, but also kids and other families within the neighborhood. And we really look at our buildings that way. It's a resource for the community, and however we can help and offer it up. Second development that we started and completed actually last year during the pandemic was building Meridian Apartments, 1076 East 6th Street, 85 unit new construction family community just right down the street from the chamber office and directly across the street from City Park. That was a project that was a number of years in the making, was a larger assemblage that the city had originally started back in the old redevelopment agency days. It was a site that was actually owned by the city, but worked in conjunction with the city to identify the product type, specifically families, and then design the property in a way. It's actually unique. It goes fronts on 6th Street and then fronts on Circle City Drive as well to the south. But went through, and that was a unique project, went through and actually did our lease up during COVID, which was, well, a first for us, but was an interesting experience. We, in the business, as we're looking at sites, designing communities, and working in conjunction with the city and local stakeholders, we look at everything from a long-term approach. CNC Development's never sold an affordable community that we have developed. And so, you know, we joke with our city partners, when you get us, you kind of get us for life. But, you know, we say that jokingly, but it is important. I mean, it's a long-term commitment to the city. It's a long-term commitment to our neighbors, to our residents. And that goes into everything from site selection, as we're looking for a location that, you know, has close access and proximity to amenities, to transit, to shopping. Look at it as it goes into the design of our building, as we're selecting construction materials. You know, there's certain decisions that can be made in the field that can save money up front in the construction phase. But, you know, if you're owning that building for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, if you're, you know, pinching a few pennies up front, it's going to end up costing you significantly in the long term. So we focus on durability of materials. And with being in business for as many years as we've had, we see how properties age. We see what products work, what products, you know, wear out, you know, within the building. So we try to make strategic decisions, but you know, frankly, we're always learning. You know, the building codes, the green building codes, energy efficiency, you know, continues to move forward year over year. And so there's always new technologies that are being incorporated into these communities that need to be evaluated. But yeah, Jeff, I mean, we just, you know, we look at it as, you know, from a long-term standpoint and being a long-term partner.
I know that's so important in our community, just because there's, you know, in the past, there've been a lot of developers that have just turned and burned and hadn't really cared extensively on whether or not they were meeting the needs of the community. And I think it's important that you mention that, because I think that is important. So let's talk a little bit about last year. Obviously, it was a challenging year for business. Although CNC is not a restaurant and didn't have those type of concerns. How did COVID-19 affect your operation? What were the obstacles you encountered?
Yeah.
And how'd you deal with them, and what did you learn from them? How's it going to change, if it's going to change any operations for the future?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, and probably like a lot of the business owners, you know, on this Zoom call today, definitely was, you know, kind of something that you could see coming out there, right? But you weren't sure, you know, we've seen these in the past over the years, but they never seem to materialize in anything of significance. And kind of quickly, it was upon all of us, both from an operational standpoint and then also construction standpoint. We were under construction on a handful of developments out in the community. You know, CNC Development, we are a general contractor, so we build as well as our own property manager. So we have altogether about 120 team members with CNC Development. That's office staff, field staff, and then resident managers out in the community. And so, quickly, like a lot of businesses work together and put together our strategy, our game plan, and really trying to deploy that in multiple lines of businesses where, we have resident managers that are interacting with the public, our clients on a daily basis, to our office staff, accounting staff, and creating we ended up going 100% remote for the most part, other than a handful of us still here in the office, but push that out within a couple of weeks, which was interesting. Buying not only PPP but hardware and software to get folks set up in their living rooms and their kitchens, but it went well. At the end of the day, we have a number of long-term staff members, team members here, and everybody just dug in and knew we were all dealing with an issue and rolled that out. We went through completed construction on the Meridian project, the one on 6th Street, which was unique because that was a week or two there where we weren't sure if we're going to be able to complete construction activities. And always our biggest fear is, having a building sit vacant when it's close to being done. Buildings are meant to be occupied. They're meant to have people living there, eyes on the property. And so that was a big fear for us. But, great relationship working with the city of Corona, not only for our project, but other business owners and folks that were under construction, and allowed those projects to continue. We were, essential workers with housing production, and we're able to complete with that. And then we went through a lease up on this and other multiple communities, which normally is a process where our managers are interacting with folks, reviewing paperwork. Our units, with being workforce housing, affordable housing, we qualify folks for income. You have to meet a certain, you cannot make above a certain income level. So we go through and we qualify folks from their tax returns to their paycheck stubs. It's a very intense verification process to meet the compliance of the program and some of the financing that we have in these communities. And we ended up doing almost all of that remote, which, looking at silver linings that came out of COVID and that experience, it was interesting. We all, I think as business owners set, our short-term goals and our longer-term goals. And there was a number of things that were always on our longer-term goal list, with being able to remotely, lease up units and qualify folks from a paperwork standpoint, which is much more intensive than a normal lease up from a market rate standpoint. But a lot of those long-term goals, we were forced to make a short-term goal in the face of COVID. And so I think, from a silver lining standpoint coming out of it, we're actually a more efficient company in our operations and our communications and how we, just process stuff that was probably done a little bit more old-fashioned way, that we had always had the goal of, going a little bit more remote or digital, but it forced us into that. And that was a nice benefit, at least. A lot of heartburn. It was a nice benefit.
Yeah. Great. That's great. I anticipate we might have some questions about some of that, but one of the many things our chamber does is advocate for legislation that is good for our business community and helps create jobs. And I know, you're probably a member of several chambers that around the Southland where you're doing projects. And can you share a little bit about what the Corona Chamber means to your company? And I guess if you can, I'm anxious to hear how important you, or how you evaluate and how important it is to be involved in the political process to nurture those relationships with centers of influence. There's a lot there, but
no, that's a good question. To answer probably the first question, yes, we are a member of the chamber, and really look at the Corona Chamber as our it's a partner similar to the city, and that is unique with other jurisdictions that we work with. Other jurisdictions have active chambers, but looking at everybody on the call here, Corona Chamber is really kind of the gold standard of the chambers that we work with. And, that's, to all of your credit, to your involvement, to Bobby and Stephanie and the team over at the chamber. It really is. I was on a call with another city earlier today. That individual lives in Corona. And yeah, I use those words to describe it. You guys are the gold standard on engaging with your business community, outreach, education, relationship with your city, which, you know, it's just such a strong relationship and it's been that way for so many years. So we appreciate the chamber. We appreciate the value that you add not only to our business, but just evident of the involvement, the engagement, going, you know, to the state of the city here last month, just the energy at those events. It's fun to be there. It's fun to be engaged within the Corona Chamber, which is, you know, not always the case in other jurisdictions. To speak to political involvement and you know, staying engaged and working with local elected officials, that is an important part of our business. You know, we work in partnership with the cities at the local levels in order to move our developments forward, and whether that's in conjunction working on properties that the city owns, working in conjunction with the city as a lender. Sometimes the cities have certain affordable housing funds that they can only use for the development of workforce affordable housing, and then really trying to help the cities at the local level achieve their policies and goals for production of housing, the types of residents that they're serving, whether it's families, whether it's seniors, whether it's permanent supportive housing, homeless housing as well. But it's also important to note that, you know, we work at the state level and then we work at the federal level as well. Our funding sources, some of the policies that are set up there affect what we do on the ground within the city of Corona. And so we want to make sure that we're involved even at the county level as well. You know, these projects that we do, these affordable housing workforce, they do take multiple funding sources and multiple stakeholders. And so we stay involved with that, Jeff, even up at the, you know, the federal level. One of the financing primary tools that we use is the low-income housing tax credit, which is a federal tax credit that gets administered by the state, which, you know, then rolls down to, you know, projects on the ground, which is, you know, interesting looking how a federal program that gets administered by the states is applied in, you know, various different states. We work exclusively in California, but that same program, those same federal dollars look a lot different on how they get deployed and what public policies are being driven, you know, in a state other than California, or maybe, you know, a little bit more of a, you know, conservative state. So, you know, we definitely keep our finger on that pulse, just to make sure that we know what's going on, how we're going to finance developments, and then, you know, how they're going to operate for the long term. Our developments take, you know, anywhere from, you know, kind of 2 years to 4 to 5 years to bring to fruition, just given the entitlement, site selection, design, construction, and then lease up. So they've got a long-term aspect to it. So we need to be, you know, making sure we're aware of what's on the horizon and engaging with those decision makers.
Okay, well, that's great. I could keep going, but I'd like to turn it back over to Kim. There may be some questions
Jeff,
of Todd.
Anthony, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have two quick questions. One of which is, what are your greatest challenges in finding property and then developing such properties?
That's a good question. It's really finding sites, identifying sites that we can, from an affordable standpoint, finance. So we really have kind of two challenges in the development of affordable housing. One is getting our entitlements, but then the other is also getting the development financed, referred to the fact that we work with a federal funding source that's administered by the state. The state has very unique policies that they are trying to push down, as everybody's very aware at local levels, but where it hits our line of business is not only what housing that they want to see being produced, but also in which communities and which part of communities. And so it's been real interesting recently at the state level. We've seen a policy where they're trying to give preferential treatment for putting family communities, traditional kind of workforce housing communities in more affluent areas of the state. And it's something that, you know, we navigate. And so it's just been an interesting policy where you have, you know, other parts of communities, even within cities, that probably have more of a need, an acute need, but you're not as competitive from the financing source. So it's really from our perspective evaluating a site that we can get entitled, something that's supported by neighbors, by city council, by staff, but then also ultimately overlaying that with a host of financing requirements to make sure that once we have our entitlements, then we can secure and pull down that money from the state to the local level.
Thank you, Todd. There's one last question. How do people go on about getting on a waiting list for your properties? Are all these low income or a mix? And can you explain the different levels of options?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. We have through our management company, we have a leasing line. We have, and I can share that information that we can disseminate to the group. But that contact information, we do unfortunately have wait lists on all of our communities, or our 2 communities in the city of Corona right now. There is an acute need for the affordable housing, the workforce housing. But we do have a new building that we are working on, a new project in the pipeline with the city. The city council had selected us for a site that the city currently owns on the corner of 2nd Street and Buena Vista, kind of northwest of the city hall, which was a former mobile home park, to develop a new family community, and then to have in conjunction with that, a 25-unit permanent supportive housing homeless component. But that's a community that we'll be working with the city to entitle and then to finance here over the next year and then bring online. But I'll share that information about how to get on the wait list. It's also important, and from our perspective, affordable housing, and you look at it, and the reason we categorize it as workforce housing, affordable housing, it is affordable housing from the standpoint it's providing rents and units at a below market rate level, but it's also from a workforce housing, it's an economic development tool. So we want to make sure that the local business community, local employers know about that. Having that resource tied into the business community is important, as there's new hires, as there's folks maybe that have worked at the company for years, but live out of town and make a longer drive. It just tying quality workforce housing, closer proximity to local businesses improves the quality of lives for the residents, and hopefully contributes to the longevity and the productivity of those employees for local business owners. So we want to make sure that connection's always being made, and that information is available to the business community.
Thank you, Todd. We would love to have that information. If you could put it in the chat, and then we can also send that in the recap email as well. With that said, there are no further questions, so I will pass it back over to Kim.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Todd, for being on the call today and sharing that information with us.
Thank you.
We apologize. We are definitely going over today's time allotment. But for those of you that are still able to stay on the call, we are moving into our update from Jeff Gibson now. If not, you can always rewatch it later on YouTube. You'll get the link as you are registered for this call. So at this time, I'm going to save the introduction and just call on Jeff to give us that update.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate that. So to kind of put a finer point on what Todd was just discussing, and we've been discussing all morning, the city of Corona, along with the rest of any other local planning agency, that's any planning agency that under state code is responsible for planning for housing, for transportation, etc. So really your cities and your counties are under very strict state orders to produce about 1.3 million units of housing statewide. And we were at the announcement that was made by the original governor's advisor on this. And at the time, the original order was for 3 million. It's now been scaled back to about 1.8, 1.3 million for Southern California. Each city and county have been given generally very large numbers. And I say generally because a city like Norco, which has a great deal of available land, was given, I believe, 64 units it had to produce. Wes speaks on the line, he would know for sure. And Corona which has a paucity of land and really has to look at reuse decisions, was given about 6,000 units it had to produce. And those are affordable units, much like Todd was talking about, much like we were talking about last week with Chris Thornburg. And yes, exactly. Thank you, Wes. I knew it was under 100. I 64 sticks out in my mind. But in any case, it was a very political process. Riverside County worked with LA County and several of the other Southern California counties to make sure that Orange County got its fair share of those numbers as well. But really what this comes down to is what we have been working with the state for years, and Todd just touched on, that the state has a policy that is now scoring family affordability projects in affluent areas where the need is actually much smaller for political reasons, as many as policy reasons. They're scoring those different. And so what we have been advocating for years is to put the housing where the need is. I've worked very closely with the California Housing Consortium in Sacramento on this. We frankly are very disappointed in the way several of the pieces of legislation are going this year, but we'll discuss that. And the problem that we've been working on here in Corona, at the Corona Chamber since the beginning of our legislative advocacy process, is that the state picks up on local issues. So state legislators bring local issues that may be specific to San Francisco, or they may be specific to Los Angeles, or they may be specific to beach communities, or they may be specific to older urban communities. And they decide to pass statewide rules. One of the classic examples were that because of pollution in the Vernon area of Los Angeles in the late 60s, and the plan by Caltrans to turn the Pacific Coast Highway into an 8-lane highway, the state passed CEQA. And so a lot of the CEQA standards that communities like Corona have had to live under from the very beginning of the passage of that bill in 1970 really are attenuated towards communities that aren't in Corona, and that there isn't a recognition that you have things in the state of California like local needs. That said, by working together, Corona has and will continue to be able to exert authority and local control. And so if we can go to the next slide there. And the reason we'll be able to do that is just for the same reason that Corona 2020 was a success, because we need to grow the solutions here. And really what ends up happening are policies that are in Sacramento. And one of the examples would be, there's a bill currently that's being held up in the Assembly. It would allow projects like those that CNC Development have created in California, in Corona, very successfully. It would give them an extra ability to work with the city. The bill is SB 6. We haven't taken a position on it, or the city of Corona has taken an opposed position on it because of some of the ideas. But they've been very successful locally, and we agree with the opposed position. I haven't given the recommendation to you to oppose this from the chamber's position, because it's going to be a very large fight. And the fight that is involved is you're taking a good idea that if a commercial project is dead and it's sitting there vacant, it is driving down the economic viability of the entire real estate market as a whole. And 2, it may be time to have a citywide discussion or a city council discussion of, should we let that owner take it from being a commercial project and become a residential project? That's not in competition with our job producers. That's not in competition with anything that we as a chamber are concerned about. That's a very important conversation to have. It's a very important conversation to have at a city level. Having legislators try and pass one law that fits all types of projects is very, very difficult. And to demonstrate that, this important policy which has some bad pieces in it and some good pieces in it, that's why the city's opposed it, is now being held up because a number of unions want there to be wage and job site rules that would actually blow any possible opportunity to meaningfully use the good parts of that bill to actually produce housing. And the Assembly Speaker is holding the bill up at the request of trade unions. I'm not making this up. I'm not telling you anything that hasn't been widely reported in newspapers. I'm sure several of you have seen it. But this is another reason why it's important for us here in Corona to consider what works locally to take on the state response. 450. Okay, so I was wrong. Norco has to do 454 units. We have 6,000 here in Corona. So yes, you can see that was not a political process at all. It was entirely a policy-driven process. So, be that as it may, go on to the next slide, please. And this brings back to the point of what we were talking about with Corona 2020, all the way back in 2017, when we started to work on that plan with Caltrans, and we became the only community in California that was creating a bank of vehicle miles traveled saved. And we put together a program that every employer could almost immediately understand, that we were trying to attract jobs locally, specifically because they would eliminate unnecessary traffic. We weren't going to eliminate traffic, we were going to eliminate unnecessary traffic. And by doing this process, we helped attract 2,500 new jobs, and we helped eliminate 650,000 hours of traffic, which according to Caltrans statistics is about 4 million vehicle miles traveled. Well, when you're planning on building projects, whether they're residential, commercial, industrial, otherwise in the state of California, you have to show how these projects, according to state law, how they actually cut down on vehicle miles traveled. That means that people will actually be driving less because of your building, of the project you're building. We now have a track record in Corona through a public-private partnership that allows the city to, if sued or over an environmental impact report or in its comments, to say, we've been doing this since 2017. This is why we have a history of doing that. So that's the key piece. And one of the things that other communities get themselves caught in are looking at this from a transportation perspective. And often, because of rules, that means that you have to start to consider transit, trains, buses, streetcars, all three, some combination therein. And again, we can look to other counties who have spent decades. Orange County's spent four to 5 decades arguing over a transit project that is still yet to be opened. And likely when opened will only cover 5 square miles. So what you're ultimately looking at is we need to be active as a community. And that starts with plans like Corona 2020. We're working on Corona 2030 right now. That starts with our support of the city in the building of, in the completion of their housing elements, so that we as a community on an ongoing basis can show that we are making substantial progress towards meeting the housing goals of the state. That does not mean that we have to meet the housing goals, but that we have to take them seriously and move towards them every day in a demonstrable way. And so that's what we're trying to do, is ultimately, and go to the 4th slide there, it is really take hold of a future in which every Corona resident plays a part. And so as we talked about with Thornburg, we've talked about with other economists, we've talked about here for over 10 years, the basics of it are that traffic goes down when jobs stay in town. And that's always our first strategy, keep jobs here. That's been a strategy long before any of us on this call got involved with with the Corona Chamber of Commerce, save maybe Bobby. Although I only saw his hairline earlier this morning, so I can't see his reaction to that. But the second piece of this, which we're going to be spending a lot of time working on over the next several years, is jobs come to towns where housing is around. And so we need that two-step strategy and to work very, very hard to make sure that there isn't a jobs housing balance, because a balance is something of two static objects. What we're looking for is a dynamic relationship between the two. And that's what we're going to be working towards. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions. I know Wes has been active in the stream and very active on this issue. It's something that you're going to see a lot about if you closely follow Corona news, and then the County of Orange is again suing over its housing number. And frankly, the state is not reaching, even despite efforts like CNC Development and others, the state is not reaching its housing numbers. And so what you're going to continue to see over the next several years is this talk of housing crisis, housing crisis, housing crisis. At the beginning of the policy, our work with Caltrans, our work with the state was to point out basically that it had never built housing at the rate that it was trying to encourage communities to build housing. So it was a very high goal to start with. So, but in any case, happy to discuss anything that you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. Anthony, do we have any questions for him?
We have one question at the moment. What action item do you recommend the chamber members to do?
The action item is to follow the county, or I'm sorry, follow the city housing element development process, which is going on basically this month. There should be a draft out sometime in August or early September for discussion, and to make sure that you understand that the city is responding in a way that allows the city of Corona to control its own destiny, so that it can continue to work with companies, CNC Development and others, that would be able to develop projects that answer Corona's needs and don't fit a cookie cutter that may even be well-intentioned. So, and when you see the amount of housing that is going to be discussed, it's very easy to get carried away and think that someone has taken leave of their senses. That's not it at all. The reason that we're here as a state is that as a state, there were decades in which we weren't paying attention to housing, especially in some urban areas where projects can be approved and still be going through the planning, be going through a permitting process for a decade or longer. And that spurred the state legislation that we now have to all live under. So.
And does this impact non-city county areas as well?
It impacts every inch of dirt in California upon which an endangered species does not sit. Yes. So if there's a gnatcatcher or a Joshua tree or a military base, then it's not affected. Otherwise, yes, it is affected. Absolutely everything. So every city, every county, every unincorporated area is going to at least meaningfully plan. And so meaningful sounds like a term of art. It's actually a term of law. And what it means is a Superior Court judge who may or may not have any development experience or any city experience looks at it and says, okay, it makes sense to me. You tried your best. You're okay. But then can turn to a city like in Huntington Beach's case, which are actually building projects, but not doing so happily, and say you aren't building projects fast enough. So it really comes down to what a judge decides.
Thank you, Jeff. There are no further questions, so I will pass it back over to Kim.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Jeff, for giving us that quick update. We also want to thank Supervisor Spiegel for jumping on the call, as well as former Mayor and Citizen of the Year, Jason Scott. And as if you'd like to reach out to your local representatives, the information is on the screen now for Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes, as well as Senator Richard Robb. Do we have that slide so they can have the contact information?
Yes, we
always
do.
encourage you to contact your local representatives to let them know how you feel about the different things that are going on that affect us. And Bobby, back to you.
Thank you. Leave that slide up for just a moment so people have an opportunity to do that. And yeah, I do want to again thank our sponsor, which is Norco College. They've served over 16,000 students in our local community and have been named the top institution for veterans. They're going to have a big announcement about their Veterans Center, and we will be updating you as that opens up. But it's a very exciting opportunity. They are on the cutting edge to allow veterans to actually cash in. I'm not going to use that word. Let's use receive credit for the years of service. If they've been trained in certain areas, they should be credentialed and whatnot. So Norfolk College is on the cutting edge of getting proper due for the people that have fought for our freedom. So again, thank you so much to Norfolk College. If you want to learn more, log on to norfolkcollege.edu. Kim, back to you.
Thank you, Bobby. If you would like to sponsor a future business briefing, please contact the Chamber. Register now to join us next Wednesday, August 4th for more advocacy news. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you all for being on. Have a good day.